Hi everyone, it's Sally, and in today's tutorial I'm going to be walking you through how to paint this fun little winter fox watercolor. So let's get started. So I'm going to start off by painting my background first, and the colors that I'm going to use are a mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna to get kind of a nice neutral brown color. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to wet your background, because wetting the background, what that does is when you go to paint in trees, those trees will kind of bleed into the background. They'll be really soft and hazy, like they're off in the distance in the forest, in the snow. So sometimes when you're painting, it's easier to flip your image upside down to paint it. So I'm going to go right around the fox and just add water, and then I'm going to paint in some of that mixture that I made. So you want to mix up a big puddle of ultramarine blue mixed with your burnt sienna, and that's the nice neutral color that you're going to use. So I got this photo on Unsplash, the little fox winter photo, and then I went back to, I didn't write down whose photo it was, so I couldn't find the photo again after I went back to try and give that person credit. So sorry about that. But I do know that it comes from Unsplash. Unsplash is a free site where you can get copyright-free photographs that you can paint. So here I am adding in my neutral color, and you can see how that wet surface on the paper makes the paint bleed into the background. So I'm just trying to paint in some distant trees. So that's it for my background. Now I'm going to work on my fox. So I'm using three different colors on my fox. One is like a very pale yellowy brown. So that's a mixture of my burnt sienna and my quinacridone gold. And then a second layer is I go more intense with that color. And then the third layer on top of that is burnt sienna. One of the things I forgot to share with you was for the tip of my nose and the eye, I use a little black Pigma pen. It's a size 01 Sakura brand Micron Pigma pen, and that's how I did those finer details. So nothing wrong with cheating. You can just use a little black pen as long as the pen is waterproof. And I find it's just a little bit easier to do if you're working in smaller areas using a little black pen. After you get that first light layer of the pale brownish yellow on, once that's dry, you can go back in and add an even darker version of that color. So more pigment, not necessarily darker. It looks darker, but you're basically just adding a lot more color. So working on defining some of the ear areas and the fur. So I'll be going around with my little number 2 brush and painting all that in. Okay, so in addition to painting in some of these more intense gold areas, I'm also going to be adding some of that neutral color that we used in the background, which was a mixture of the ultramarine and the burnt siennas. So around the fox on his ears, inside his ears, along his legs, and also in his tail. So some of the areas on the front white portion of the fox and the white on the one side of his leg there and the fox's nose, those are going to have like a lighter version of that neutral color. So once my fox and the background is all dry, I can go back onto that little fox with my white pen. So I used a white Uniball gel pen. And then I decided, after I added a little bit of white, that my background needed to be a little bit darker. So I'm just re-wetting that background and throwing in some more of that neutral color. Okay, so I'm adding a little bit of that neutral color behind the fox here. So I'm trying to make the back of the fox look furry by adding a serrated edge with my background color. So the reason I went a little bit darker in my background was I felt like the snow that I'm going to spray on top of this was not going to show up. So in order for the snow to show up, your background has to be fairly dark. So in the next part of the video, after this is dry, you'll see I spray the background with white watercolor paint. Once the background is dry, you just tap that paint on, and then for some of the bigger snowflakes, I just used my white Posca pen. So sometimes I'll bleed the color of the animal into the background. If the background is still wet, you can do this. So I just drop in that color that's on the fox and just let it bleed right into the background. I feel like this is a more successful way of merging, I guess you could say, the subject matter into the background, so you don't have that real hard edge of the subject matter meeting the background. So now I'm tapping my white watercolor paint all over my background to make snow. And then once that's done and that's dry, I went back in with my white Posca pen to add more larger snowflakes. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed this little watercolor tutorial. Bye for now.